men don't know that you could be bothered about something and that you could let it go 5 minutes later. He just doesn't know that. And you want to give him almost a hint at that terminology at times. It's like, yeah, I was upset for a little while. Then I realized and I remembered all the wonderful things you do for me, and it just went away. See, you have to explain women to him because he does not, back to our first point, he does not understand women. You could be upset about something and he will defend himself to death, but you're making a big deal out of it. But that's not exactly what happened. But I didn't say that. You go into this, if you sort of just within yourself, it's not a big deal. That's one way of lightening. And another is, I just need to talk about this for a few minutes and I'll be done with it. And another thing in passing, you can say, the other day when you said this, I was hurt. It's not really a big deal, but I needed some time. And then I started thinking about all the wonderful things for you. And I just let it go. Sometimes my emotions just grip me and I just needed a little time to let it go. And then I started remembering all the amazing things you do, and then say out loud some of the amazing things he does for you. Just like you drove all that way to pick up that thing for me. And you brought me to the restaurant the other day and you emptied the trash. I didn't have to bother you about it. It's just like, just the little things that he does, say it out loud. And that's a good time to say it out loud. It's kind of like, yeah, I was bothered by something, I was starting to think about it. And I realized, wait a second, you do all these wonderful things for me. Then he starts getting an inkling of how do you process things? What do you think about things? And he starts to realize, boy, I shouldn't keep doing a lot of little things for her. Otherwise she'll have reasons to not like me. So this is how you have to sort of gradually educate a man into what matters for you in a way that isn't trying to say, you should do this, you should read John Gray's book, you should take, that men should do this, and you're my husband, you should do this. That's not going to work with him, just as it doesn't work for a husband to say to his wife, you should read John Gray's book, and you should do this, and you should do this, you should do this. But having said that, I'm sure many women who maybe have never read Men Are From Mars are like thinking, wow, this is some good information. How do I get him to read it?
Exactly. I bet you've had more than one woman say to a man, you should read John Gray's book.
Right.
You read John Gray's book. You're the one that needs to do all the work and change it.
That's right. So that never works, but you can use your subtleties. There's nuances here. You could just maybe even have Men Are From Mars on the bookshelf, and he'd never read it, but you could take the new book, which is Beyond Mars and Venus, that we're kind of talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, I was reading John Gray's Mars book, and he wrote this chapter on how men and women are different, and men need more testosterone, and they need cave time. Can you look at that one little section and tell me if you think that's true? And then he's looking at the book to see if it's true, because he's the expert. I love it. That is a great tip, John. I love that. And that's only if they haven't read if they've already read Men Are From Mars and forgotten about it. But if you haven't read Men Are From Mars, that's just so classic. If you go to the chapter on men go to their caves, every man will relate to that. And you say, he's talking about men and women, and he's so right on when he talks about me. Then he talks about men, and I just don't. I need a little feedback on this. Will you read this section about men and tell me if it's true? So he becomes the expert because he's a man. You should know whether it's true or not. And then he'll look at it and go, I like this guy. Also, I've got that TED Talk. I've got a few, but the best one is in the red shirt. And I think it's Mars brain, Venus brain, something like that. But it's really funny. Men like humor. They need to lighten up. It's not a big deal. We just don't know better. We have to, you have to give them an out when anybody has an out. And it's kind of like the whole concept of, instead of punishing people, forgiving people and learning lessons. And that's what makes relationships great, is we learn to do that. And ultimately it's realizing we really don't know what we're doing. We don't really understand each other, but we think we do. Okay. And we think they should know. That's the thing we started out with.
Is this in part, this might be an obvious question, but I have to ask it. Is this in part because we expect that men think like us or feel like us or are going to respond like us, and vice versa? Men think women are going to think and respond like them. I mean, that may seem like an obvious question, but is that part of the challenge we have?
That's chapter 1 of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's the whole premise of this is how we tend to misinterpret each other, is because we tend to have different reactions, and we think we don't really feel that different because we're connecting. So how could you react like that? How could you say something like that? How could you be light about that? How can you be so heavy about that? Why are you complaining about that? We have different reactions to things. And in Men Are From Mars, I just said it's because we're different. It's like we're from different planets. Now, in this book is great, which is I brought it into the biology. I mean, literally every difference I talked about in Men Are From Mars, you can now explain it happens because when she does this to him, like, for example, when he interrupts her and wants to give her a solution, why is he doing that? Does he think that you can't solve it yourself? Does he think that you're inadequate? Does he not care about you? Does he put himself above you? No, it's that if there's a problem and you're talking about it, his job is to solve the problem. So in solving problems will increase testosterone in him. So that's what feels good, is to give solutions. So we're always going to move towards what feels good. And if you're a woman and your husband seems to be ignoring you and neglecting you, you want to talk, and you want to talk about, maybe there's not that many good things to talk about in your mind. So you start talking about problems. You want to connect. What does he think? What's he feel? What's going on? He's like thinking, why are you complaining to me? Why aren't you happy? Don't you see all the things I've done for you? And so you would learn that if a woman is stressed, she needs to talk about problems. And that if she's not stressed, she'll talk about how wonderful things are. Men love to hear that for sure. But if you're stressed, your brain, and this is unique to women more than men, under moderate stress, you'll have 10 times more bias of looking at negative things than positive things. Now, men under big stress, like big problems they can't solve, then a man's brain will go into a bias of seeing everything that's wrong. But a woman will go into that with little levels of stress at the adrenaline level, which means is a problem. Let's talk about it. And so the brain will start focusing on negative things. But if she talks about it and somebody listens without trying to change her or fix her, but just connects with her by listening, then her estrogen levels will go up. Her stress levels will go down. Men don't know that. They just don't know. They think if you're unhappy in any way, we'll talk you through it by telling you you're wrong. and that is logical from one point of view if you're just a logical being, but we're not just logical beings. We tend to be emotional beings as well, both men and women. It's just that the emotions for a woman are highly important for her to regulate stress levels, and detachment from emotion is the best way, the fastest way for a man to rebuild his testosterone. It's not the only way. It's the best way, easy way. It's just, that's why I call cave time. Just do something that does involve your wife, okay, that makes you happy. And don't do it too long, okay, because then you can become overly dependent on that. Like, don't play games too long. Don't watch a football game once plenty, and once a week. You don't do this every day. Otherwise, you get too dependent on something outside yourself, and that produces estrogen that lowers your testosterone. What happens when men have low testosterone? And they don't know this about themselves. Okay, I'm explaining it to men just like I explain to women how they can cope with stress, why they do things. We don't have this knowledge yet about ourselves. A man just wants to go watch TV, and he doesn't want to talk to you. Why is he doing that? His body actually needs to disconnect from anything which would be emotional about love, and he needs to pull back and then relax. And when he relaxes after working hard, it will rebuild his testosterone. It feels good. But if he doesn't work hard and he just relaxes all the time, he doesn't have testosterone. But the brain is confused. See, men don't know. We just don't understand ourselves. So science comes along, helps us understand this. Your relaxation will not rebuild testosterone if you didn't use it up by solving problems, fixing things, challenges, setting goals, postponing gratification. These are all the male qualities. And to go more into that, I've got this book, Beyond Mars and Venus, where I explain attitudes and behaviors that stimulate testosterone, attitudes and behaviors that stimulate estrogen. And men do not understand how they sort of unconsciously do these things. And now if a man spends too much time with a woman, here's something else you need to learn about men. If he spends a lot of time with you, his estrogen levels are going to go up because he's thinking about you. He's caring about you. He's trying to do the right thing. He's depending on your appreciation to feel good, basically. And that's intimacy for him. So he's spending too much time with you. His estrogen levels are going very high. Then he's going to become very bored with you and disconnect from you and think he doesn't like you anymore. Because he doesn't know that it's a natural thing for him to withdraw. If he spends too much time on his estrogen side, he'll tend to just pull away. And what she doesn't understand about men is that when he pulls away, the worst thing you can do is try to connect with him. You need to disconnect with him and connect with somebody else. Okay, you need to have this sense of a life where when he pulls away, he's only 1/10 of your life. 90% is your life's going on. And while he pulls away, you send him little pictures of yourself if you're dating. Hey, just thinking about you, had such a fun time, and I'm over here having a good time. Or you could ask him, that's called a FYI. You just send a little text, a picture, just put yourself in his awareness without demanding more from him. You don't want to go after him when he pulls away. You don't realize that because quite often women, if you pull away, you're wanting him to show his love and pursue.
Right.
This is like, it's like a little testing, and testing is a feminine thing you do. You shouldn't be ashamed of it, whatever, because women, before you're going to get pregnant with somebody, you want to make sure they're the right guy. Instinctively, there's all these tests that you put. Does he really care about me? Does he love me? Does he like me? He doesn't think about all that kind of stuff. He might be thinking about, am I going to make money? Am I going to be successful at this? Am I going to get laid? He's thinking about a goal, but she's looking about requirements. So this testing and securities are much stronger, and they go along with estrogen. And when the estrogen levels are low, your insecurities will be much, much higher. When your estrogen levels go high, and you're feeling supported, then you have huge confidence. Okay, that's when you're going to be happiest, is when your estrogen levels are rising and you have support there, that I can depend on others and they have my back. That's why in the business world, we're gradually creating a business world which is more supportive of the female side of us all. And that means teamwork, where I feel that I have the support of other people. At the same time, men will have a greater need for feeling independent on a team. Like, okay, we're on a team, but I'm the quarterback, or I'm a team and I'm the end. I have my role and I get acknowledged for that part of it. Whereas for women, it's like we're all together here, we're sharing this process. And so we're trying to bring these two worlds together.